Today on 21st Century Television. Join us as we explore innovative technologies, cutting-edge solutions, and timely discussions from leaders across the globe. Featuring guest host Donald Trump Jr. This is 21st Century Television.
Welcome to 21st Century Television. I'm Donald Trump Jr. The mortgage industry faces difficult regulatory reform requirements based on the RESPA TILA ruling that will go into law in August 2015. Here today to discuss how their company is helping organizations provide a foundation and gateway for this change, we have Chris Ayub, COO, and Mark McElroy, CEO and President of Pavaso. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us, Don.
Great to be here, Don. Thank you.
Mark, how does Pavaso make the process more efficient and save stakeholders some money?
Well, Don, what happens is in today's world we're sending paper back and forth between the different stakeholders. So there's a lack of technology integration that keeps people working in the same place. What Pavaso and Digital Close do is they bring everybody, all the stakeholders into one place so that they can work in with the same data, the same documents, and they can understand and document the process of closing itself. The most important component of that is bringing the consumer into the deal. In the past, the consumer's not been included in the deal, and you really show up, you sign your papers, and you're done, you get your keys and you go home, but you really don't know what you signed. This is going to help everybody across the board gain efficiency and gain synergy in the data that they work on, working in the same place, and getting that process documented.
Mark, what made you decide to take this kind of product to market?
You know, I spent 13 years in the title production space creating software for title companies to actually produce the paper. And it just became obvious to me several years ago that the process really needed to be improved, and eventually the consumer was going to get into the space, and we were going to have to pay attention to them. So it was an obvious transition and evolution for the industry to do. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody will accept it the day that you do it, but you know, it was a big move for us, and I just decided that we were going to go ahead and build the technology well in advance and then prepare for the industry to catch up to us.
Let's take a closer look at Pavaso solutions in this 21st Century Television Field Report.
The TILA-RESPA compliance going into effect in August 2015 will greatly impact the process of closing real estate transactions by giving the consumer much more choice and control in the deal. In addition to raising processing and closing costs, the industry overall is not well prepared for these changes. Pavaso's Digital Close platform is not just a compliance solution, but a solution that will enable stakeholders to reduce the cost of loan origination, compliance, and provide a first-class consumer experience. Matt Ferris of Ferris Title Group explains.
Digital Close helps us in several areas of our title company. First, it makes us much more efficient. We can communicate with the client through the portal, the Digital Close portal. In real time, they get the documents through that portal. They have plenty of time to review those documents, ask questions. There's videos embedded in those documents. Secondly, it reduces our risk. You know, the Digital Close has all of the deadlines that we have to meet under the new rules, closing disclosures and so forth, delivery of documents. Those deadlines are incorporated into the software, so we are alerted as to when deadlines are coming up. And thirdly, really communication. I mean, our business is all about communication, and there's so many parties involved in the process that there's emails flying around everywhere. Well, with Digital Close, most of those and actually all those communications can be housed in Digital Close, where people can log in and look at that and basically reduce the email overload and access in real time.
So what's the difference between Digital Close and e-closing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, industry and business has a way of defining terms like e-closing. And for the most part, e-closing has been associated with digital signatures, the ability to sign digitally rather than with a pen and ink. Digital Close, on the other hand, talks about all the forensic data that went into the process and how the consumer, what actions did they perform, what things did they click on, what did they read, who talked to whom, and how the information passed from one place to the other, like chain of custody of documents, for example. So digital close is much, much more. It can do the e-signing, much, much more than that.
Chris, besides automating compliance, what other features does your product bring to the marketplace?
Several, Don. One of the main things, of course, in spirit of the rule, is to ensure that we're automating compliance. But beyond that, we want to increase stakeholder communication. And Mark touched on this a little bit earlier, where the customer needs to be at the center of the deal. Mm-hmm. And we have built lots of applications in Pavaso to be able to allow the consumer to be able to receive those documents in advance, to have that channel of communication to the lender or the title company or to their closing attorney, to their realtor. Beyond that, we've developed these great applications to help the consumer post-close. And I'll give you an example. We have an application that allows the consumer to find out if they are paying more for real estate taxes than they should on their property. Mm-hmm. And then if it is, in fact, that they are, then they'll have the opportunity to fight that. Same thing with title. We have people do multiple credit checks, and you get your title check done at closing, but what about 5 years down the road? How do you know that that title's still what it was 5 years ago and that it's clean? Or if I'm about to put my home on the market, I would hate to lose a deal on my home to come find out at closing that there isn't a clean title on there. So those are some of the applications that we're building for the consumer life cycle.
You know, and it's interesting, Don, that there's two things that we know that happen at the closing for every consumer. Your credit's clean and your title's clean. It would be an obvious conclusion to create applications to show you how to keep them clean, mm-hmm. which is what Pavaso does.
Mark, what kind of economic impact will this have for lenders?
Beyond the efficiencies that we gain, which is a big deal, we've created circumstances where, since we have the consumer engaged in a major transaction, that they're paying attention and they have needs at the time that they're closing, we've given the lender the opportunity to create upsell, cross-sell opportunities. It's a high likelihood that when you're moving, that you're going to want to change banks, you're going to need a new debit card, you're going to need a new credit card, you're going to need other services that the bank has. And we create the opportunity for the bank to bring those to the table and in the safety of your home, on your couch, so that you can choose these new banks with the lender that you're getting the mortgage from. It's obvious and it's simple and it makes sense. These things have never been done in the past. Mortgages have been isolated as an event without that upsell, cross-sell capability. And this further improves, the lender's profitability, the other banking services profitability, and ease of use for the consumer.
In contrast to other solutions on the market, Digital Close captures the who, what, when, and how of the process and ensures that they are completed. Digital Close fulfills all of the regulatory requirements without increasing the costs and upsetting the current processes that have been operated for over 50 years. This is accomplished while increasing the personal commitment and interaction of each stakeholder, with the consumer at the focal point.
Digital Close helps the consumer in that it's an educational process for them. It helps them manage the process better. Many first-time home buyers never been through the process, and just trying to manage all the different communications can be overwhelming for people. So it allows them to manage that process. Digital Close has really been a very seamless integration with our closing software. To my surprise, I was initially skeptical, thinking it was going to be too complex, but with the staff of Digital Close and their expertise and knowledge, they came out, trained the staff in one day, and because it integrates with our closing software, the doc prep systems as well, really it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. The interface is extremely user-friendly. Having the ability to transmit documents through the Digital Close portal reduces a lot of costs. Because of the streamlined closing process through Digital Close, you're able to close more transactions. So not only are you cutting costs, you're increasing revenues, and the net effect is more profitable title company.
What do you see as any barriers of entry for Digital Close?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think this industry is very, very old. It's been around a long time. And if we go back 40, 50 years ago, the way business was done in the real estate industry is it was local. I knew my banker, I knew my realtor, I knew all the people involved in my transaction. I trusted them, and I placed trust in them. So when it came time to close, I knew that the paperwork was right. I knew that they were going to do a good job. But as the country grew and banks became bigger and we got to globalization and nationalization of mortgages, we kept the same old processes of trust in place, and we didn't evolve into bringing the consumer into the deal, yet it got much more diverse where I didn't know my lender. I didn't know necessarily everybody in the process, and it was just delivered and presented to me in paper. So in the end, I think that has a great barrier for people to change. That's a paradigm rut that the industry gets in because it's always been done that way. We've heard that 1,000 times. Why fix something that's not broken? In actuality, it's been broken for a while, and it needs to be fixed. And the consumer needs to have that opportunity for knowledge, and transparency, and education. And that's probably the #1 barrier.
Mark, what does Pavaso certified mean?
Don, what it is it's a term that we've identified, and it's multiple levels of certification and capability that the service providers in the mortgage process, in the closing process, can achieve through us and prove the ability to be able to use the products like digital close. So in essence, it's moving from that paper world into the digital world and gaining a certification that you can actually accomplish that.
Chris, what does your term closing forensics mean?
Closing forensics is all the data that from inception, from the time a realtor submits the contract in through our Pavaso system that arrives at the title company. We're capturing chain of custody, we're capturing who signed what, how long this person reviewed this document for, all along the way, and all those checks and balances are in place. So it's all that data that continues to compile through the closing process is arriving along with the package. So all those closings forensics go into the secondary market package, and that's the confidence that will be in the closing package for the secondary market.
If you can imagine, Don, if we could go back in time and you look in the news and you look at all the paperwork and the robo-signing that has been done and the litigation that happened between lenders and consumers and so forth, the thing that was missing that would have proved out a lot of those cases was what happened during the process. Who said what, who did what was presented, who signed what. That's what closing forensics is. We're going to be able to replay what happened in that closing at a later time.
Mark, tell us a little bit about your pilot program.
Well, we have multiple phases of pilot, but pilot really means that we're getting into the marketplace and doing actual closings in parallel with the current process. So the intent is, #1, to prove out the technology. #2, to gain insight, knowledge, survey data from consumers, from realtors, from lenders, from title companies, how they like it, what they're getting at. Is it reducing time to close? Is it really reducing paper, or are we just duplicating the process? Those things really refine the process down into a more quality, well thought out product. Not that it hasn't been yet, but this just really fine-tunes the product.
Guys, thank you. It appears that Pavaso is really helping their mortgage industry clients get ahead of this trend.
Thanks for having us, Don.
Don, great being here. Thank you.
Good having you.